Development, and welcome to today's webinar, Recruiting and Engaging Small Businesses. Today's speaker is Mark Field, Senior Vice President of Membership at the Knoxville Chamber. Hi, Mark. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Crystal. It's good to be with you.
Well, why don't you, I'll give you a minute to tell us a little bit about yourself, but I want to make a quick note to our attendees. Please put your phones on mute. There are two ways to ask a question. You can use the chat function in your panel box, or you can raise your hand and we'll call on you, and that will initiate the audio portion where you can talk through your phone. If you have chosen to listen via VoIP, which means that you're listening through your computer, if you can hear me, has a speaker, but in order to speak, you have to have a microphone on your computer. So the only way you can have an audio question if you're using VoIP is to have a speaker on your computer. Those of you on the telephone, you can raise your hand, and that'll open up the line for you. Okay, Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right, thanks, Crystal. Well, I've been with the Knoxville Chamber for 10 years now, 10 years this January. I came to the Chamber. I was on the board at the Chamber. I worked for a healthcare system here in our community. I ran their provider-owned managed care network, which is a little bit like a health insurance company. And before that, I was a regional vice president with the Olston Corporation and had all the southeastern states. But I was on the board here at the Chamber, and I was on the executive committee when we started doing a search for a membership person. And at the end of the recruiting, the chairman and our CEO looked at me at a lunch. I was helping them in the interviews and said, "Why don't you do this?" And I was a little shocked by the request, but I loved the Chamber after being on the board and on the executive committee, and went home and spoke with my wife, and so now 10 years later, here I've been here 10 years. I'm responsible for everything at our Chamber that isn't economic development. I have marketing, I have membership, I have all our programs, our benefits, communications, workforce and government relations, and all of those sort of things. So everything that isn't economic development. And really have a passion, which you guys will probably hear today, is about our small business members. And so look forward to talking with you guys today for a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and get started. As you guys see, the name of our talk today is Recruiting Engaging Small Business. And the one thing I want to say about that is, today is more about, I'm going to give you some tools to walk away with, some things to think about, some ways to go about engaging your members, as the title explains. But I want you guys to kind of understand that this is really a new change in attitude from the perspective of the Chamber. Now, for some of you it may not be, but for a lot of you it will be, in trying to really think about the amount of small businesses that you have in your community and the great needs they have and how different their needs are from just your general membership. And I know I can speak for our Chamber. Our small businesses are now more engaged with our Chamber than ever before. Before, the majority of the people that were engaged with our membership on a daily basis were either our large businesses or businesses that had 10 to 15 employees or more. But really what I'm talking about is businesses that have 10 employees or less and really need your help in trying to grow. As you can see on our slide here, small business really does matter. It's the backbone of our economy. Depending on who you talk to, the Small Business Administration or any of the U.S. government entities will say that small business makes up about 85% of our economy. There's 27 million small businesses, 97% of U.S. employers, 3/4 of all the jobs that are created, and the smallest businesses stand to make the biggest impact on our economic growth. That's a quote directly from Tom Donahue at the U.S. Chamber. The thing that we need to think about, though, is in most cases, there's 75 to 90% of all of our members. I know we're heavily leveraged with small members, small business members, and predominantly until about 3 years ago, we didn't hear from a whole lot of them. We heard from the neediest of our members. I know you guys all have the extra grace required members that call on you a lot, but predominantly most of our business needs and benefit needs were from our medium-sized businesses up to our large businesses. And so it was a new shift for us to began the process of looking at our small business members and how we could really drive benefits to them. So let's talk a little bit about the profile of a small business owner. So really, who are they? You know, I've learned over the years that most small business owners start their businesses because they're either a subject expert or they're a craftsman. And what I mean by that is it could just be as simple as a guy that was doing hardwood floors for another company here in town, and he decided one day he was doing these hardwood floors, and maybe one of his clients gave him a really great compliment and said, "Why are you doing this for the person you're working for? You could do this yourself." Or it's a subject expert that leaves a large company either by downsizing predominantly over the last few years, or a subject expert that decides to go into consulting. That's how they predominantly come into business, is by having great knowledge or great talent in a specific area. And then, as I said, one day they have what I call the entrepreneurial seizure, what Michael Gerber, the guy that wrote the entrepreneurial myth, the E-myth, says they have an entrepreneurial seizure. They're working one day, they get a compliment, and they're asked the question, "Why are you doing this, and why are you not doing it for yourself?" And they have that seizure that says, "You know what, I could be doing this for myself." What they don't understand at that moment is, while they may be a talented craftsman or an incredible subject expert, what they don't realize is there are a whole lot of other things that go into running their business. So they go into, with this entrepreneurial seizure, a very closed-minded attitude toward, "I'm good at what I do, I'm passionate about it, and I'm going to be successful." And what happens is one of two things happen. Either they grow very quickly and take on new employees, or they grow very quickly and shrink back because they understand that they can't handle the management and operation of their business every day. Now, I know all of you could probably look at chamber members over the last 3 or 4 years that have joined the chamber and had 4 or 5 employees, and then they've either dropped or have come to you and told you that they can't stay at the level they're at, or something has happened to their business and they've had to shrink back because of lack of business development or lack of being able to find people that they could trust to help them run their business. So, you know, a lot of times they go into business, if not most times, under this entrepreneurial seizure. So, again, the bullet point says they got into business lacking operational development knowledge. One thing that you can always count on when you sit down and talk to a small business owner, they will be one of two things. They will either be developmentally oriented or they'll be operations oriented. And what I mean by that is they're either really good at sales and building new business, or they're really good at just getting the work done. And the more you talk to them, it's very unusual for them to have both of those skills in the running of their business. And so you just have to ask them questions like, where do you spend your most time? What are the things that you enjoy doing? You know, what do you think about sales? How's that going for you? You can ask really simple questions and get a pretty quick idea of where their business lacking is. One thing we know about small business owners, they're overworked mentally or physically or both. All of you guys that are in the chamber business know when you sit down and talk with a small business owner, they're pretty helter-skelter. They're wearing all the hats. They are the CEO, the CFO, the Chief Marketing Officer. They are responsible for quality control. They are responsible for scheduling. Most small business owners are incredibly overworked mentally or physically or maybe both. And as a result, they're stressed, they're confused, and they're frustrated a lot of the time. And part of the thing that goes into that, into their stress and their confusion and their frustration, is the fact that they can't get their arms around that part of the business where they're lacking knowledge, and it's really frustrating them. And as a result, they're fighting fires. They don't know how not to do those things. So as a result, they don't know what they don't know. That sounds kind of rhetorical and crazy, but it's really true. If you ask them questions like, do you have an inventory control method in place, or do you have a way to measure cash flow? They look at you pretty much like a dog staring at a fan. They don't know that they need that, because when they got into the business, they got into the business with the knowledge that they had, not the knowledge that they needed. And so they're very frustrated by the fact that there's a lot about running their business they don't know. Now, there are some instances where this isn't true. And almost every case that I have a small business member that has a business coach who has done a good job with them, and they've been compliant with that business coach normally they begin to understand what it is they don't know and how to go about working on it. But that's kind of the transition, and I want to talk to you guys today about how you can be a great resource to them and help them understand what they don't know. And you have to do it in a real, comfortable, easygoing environment. You can't just go into a meeting and tell people that they don't know what they don't know and you're there to tell them that. You have to help them discover it. Anthony Greenback in his book of survival says, to live through an impossible situation, you don't need the reflexes of a Grand Prix driver, the muscles of Hercules, or the mind of Einstein. You simply need to know what to do. And that's really true of your small businesses in your community. They don't really need to have all these great attributes. They don't need to have the reflexes of a Grand Prix driver or the mind of Einstein. They just simply need to know what to do and where to go find it. Most small business owners, if you'll give them the resources and the tools, will take advantage of them. So in your community, I'll ask the question, where does a small business owner get real help? I know in our community that was a pretty confusing situation. They could go to our Small Business Development Center. They could go to SCORE. They might have gone to the Small Business Administration and applied for a loan and maybe found out that they didn't qualify and found out that there were great resources available to them through the SBA. Some of your communities have entrepreneurial centers. Some of those are actually located in the junior colleges and state colleges, the Board of Regent colleges in your state. And some of them are located, associated with your chambers. But entrepreneurial centers are some places that small businesses go to get help. Some of your communities have incubators. They're specifically designed for startups. Some of your communities, I know Chattanooga has an incubator for light manufacturing businesses, and they have the unique kind of space that those folks need to be able to start light manufacturing businesses. So there's all kinds of incubators in your communities. There's state support. I know the state of Tennessee, up until this last year, had the Business Enterprise Resource Organization we call BRO. That was another state-supported organization that was focused on helping small businesses and helping them get the resources that they need. Part of your small business owners get help from their friends. They go to another small business owner and they sit around and talk about how to help each other's business and how to help it grow. Well, if you listen to anything that I said before, you can make the logical leap that if their friends don't know what they don't know and they don't know what they don't know, they're really just helping each other know what they don't know. And I know that sounds kind of, again, rhetorical, but it's really true. I've seen a lot of small businesses that have come in our office and have availed themselves to our resources and our tools, and they have said, well, I didn't know any different. The only person I had to talk to was my friend that worked next door to me, or a guy I used to work with in the company I work for, or just another friend who was in business for himself. So that's something that small business owners do. They're looking for resources, and a lot of times they'll take them wherever they can find them. And then possibly the chamber. You know, I don't know how most of your chambers are set up, but I know our chamber up until about 3 years ago was really not set up well to offer benefits and services to our small business members in a meaningful way. But there is still that possibility that that's happening. So let's make that transition of saying, okay, so we're a chamber and we're interested in engaging our small businesses, and we really think we could help them. But really, why would the chamber be a great help to our small business members? Well, there's a couple of things. Obviously, you're local. There's local chambers in all of our communities. You know, in our community, for instance, in our MSA, we have 4 really strong chambers. So the fact that we cooperate and collaborate with each other is wonderful, and it also means that none of the small businesses in our region, for that matter, have any excuse not to avail themselves to great resources. It's logical because we're responsible for the economy in our community, and if most of the business growth is going to happen in our small businesses, then it's logical that the chamber would have some responsibility and some accountability to making sure that that happened. And I don't know if you guys have taken that accountability, that responsibility seriously yet, but I would encourage you to do that. If you're responsible for business growth in your community, it's certainly more than business retention expansion, and it's certainly more than economic development and bringing new recruits to town. It's helping your small businesses gain the resources and tools they need to hire more people. So I use this analogy quite often. As you guys know, we have Green Mountain Coffee here in Knoxville, and they're cranking out 3 to 5 million K-Cups a day. Right south of us is Chattanooga, and they have Volkswagen, and they're cranking out Volkswagens down there on a daily basis. And each of those companies have over 1,000 employees. And when both of us made those announcements for those companies, that was a big day for our chambers. But just think about it. If you have, like Knoxville has somewhere around 25,000 businesses in our community, small businesses in our community. If each one of those just hired one person over the next 5 years, look at what that would account for. We should be excited about the fact that growth is possible in our small business sectors. And so it's really logical that the chamber would look at this as an economical development opportunity that can be handled on the membership side of the house. I would venture to say that most of your chambers are well respected in your community. I'm sure they are. That's another great attribute of launching new programs and sending new messages into the community is the fact that you're already incredibly respected, and people will expect a message from you that talks about how to help small businesses gain the resources they need and how to give them what they need in order to grow their business. You have clout. And the reason I mention clout is it's possible for you to go in the community, and this is a lesson that was tough for us to learn until about 3 or 4 years ago. You know, we were sitting in a room and we talked about being mildly competitive with all these other services and programs in our community. You know, again, we had an organization called Entrepreneurs of Knoxville. We had the Entrepreneurial Center. We had the Small Business Development Center. We had SCORE. And all of those organizations were focused on trying to help small businesses and give them benefits in one way or the other. And so if your chamber was anything like ours 3 or 4 years ago, we kind of found ourselves in what I would call a mildly competitive environment. Now, I certainly wanted all those organizations to do well, but I didn't want them to do well at my expense. And so I was always wondering are they spending money with those organizations that they should be spending with me? Or are they doing something that I should be doing? And am I going to be red-faced when a business asks me why I'm not doing it? And then one day in a staff meeting, we kind of put our self-image hats on and we said, we're the Chamber of Commerce, for God's sakes. The city and the county and the general business public holds us accountable for regional economic prosperity. They come to us and expect us to be responsible for growing jobs in our community. And if that's true, then why do we care as long as an organization in our community is doing something positive to make that happen? Why should we care? Why shouldn't we collaborate with them? Why shouldn't we support them? Why shouldn't we promote those organizations? And I know that some of you are out there hearing that message right now and you're thinking, well, that's easy for you to say in Knoxville, but you should be in my community. Well, it's not an overnight thing. It's something that you have to begin the process of. But the one thing that you have going for you is you are the chamber, for God's sakes. You have clout in your community. You are the organization that most people hold responsible and accountable and look up to from a business growth perspective. And so I would just say, put your self-image hat on and begin to hold yourself up as the umbrella over all of these business organizations in your community that are trying to help businesses. And instead of you being mildly competitive with them, being a very collaborative, supportive, promoting kind of an environment with them. It will change how people view you. And then the last but not least, obviously, very simply, is you have the audience. You already have small business members, so if you begin to talk about driving resources to them, helping them grow their business, how you're going to go about doing it, telling them that you want their input, it's going to be an easy audience to find. They're going to embrace it greatly. Our small businesses embraced it greatly. So how do you get started? Again, I want to tell you guys that this is more about an attitude than it is a specific recipe. But I am going to give you some ideas. So understand your role. In order to understand your role, you need to understand what small businesses are doing in your community, and you need to understand that they're firefighters. They're out there firefighting every day, as I talked about before, being confused and frustrated, really not knowing exactly where to go and get resources, really feeling like they're not getting everything from the chamber or any other business organizations in your community that they deserve. You have the unique ability to help them figure out what's causing the fires. So you, in effect, are the arson investigators. If you sit down and have a conversation with a small business and you ask them serious questions about what's giving you the most problems, why do you feel like things are not working well, how long have you been doing specific things to help your business grow, what's worked, what hasn't worked, you begin to ask the questions that help them discover why they're fighting fires every day. So you, in effect, become the arson investigator. And then the analogy goes on further to say that hopefully your members and you together can become fire prevention specialists. You can help them understand how to never let those fires happen again. And for that matter, with a little bit of communication, your members can help other members understand how not to let those fires happen again. The more success you have with this program, the more testimonials you'll have, and the more testimonials you'll have, the more momentum you'll gain. And the more momentum you gain, the more people begin to ask you to help them with their business. And so fire prevention becomes something that happens kind of by proxy if you do a really good job of helping them understand that they're firefighters and that you're there to help them. The first thing you have to do when it comes to small business to gain credibility is to know the trends. These are some things that you need to study a little bit. Your membership account executives need to study a little bit. If you're a one- or two-man operation or a two-person operation in your community, then really the onus is on you to understand more about cloud computing, more about mobile technology, more about social media and how they can employ it, more about the lending and funding sources that are available in your communities as well as your financial hubs that are close to you. And you also have some responsibility and accountability to help them understand the Affordable Health Care Act and the health care impact that's happening to them right now. But all of these are things that they would like to know more about, but they don't have time to sit and research, and they need subject experts either in your community or in your chamber to help them. Now, most of us do this in a really casual environment. We call it Lunch and Learns. We actually call it our Bright Idea series. That's really not enough because you give them a lot of information. They're distracted when they come. They hear a few good things. They go out and try to employ them without good execution techniques. These are the kind of things that you almost have to do in a small group environment. We have been successful in doing some of these things in roundtables and some of these things in Bright Ideas in not so big of an environment. 20 to 30 people max, so that they can actually ask a lot of questions and they can get feedback from each other. The best person to speak at your Bright Ideas series is your members. Because if your members hold their hand up and say, well, I tried that and it didn't work, or I tried this and it did work for my business, your members are going to walk away from that experience a whole lot more positively than they are just hearing a talking head up there tell them all about that subject. So these are the issues that we have found that our small businesses want to know the most about, along with basic operational things. Basic things like cash flow, basic things like human resources, basic things like inventory control. Those are really the hot buttons for what our small businesses ask of us. Questions so far? Okay. So here's how you want to start engaging them. First of all, you need to know the ecosystem. So what is the ecosystem? The ecosystem is all of those folks in your community that can help small businesses. And what we didn't realize until we really started trying to discover what the ecosystem consisted of all the different people that we were either not interacting with or we had that mildly competitive relationship with. That has really been dissolved. We really don't have any business-oriented organization in our community now that we are not at the table with, that we're not talking with, that we don't help advertise their events on our event schedules, that we're not promoting where it makes sense. Again, not to the exclusion of a chamber event, but certainly if the events are not coinciding with each other, we're tickled if people go to anything that helps them understand how to grow their business or understand how to become more operationally effective. So you've got to start looking around. Some of you may not realize that you have some of these resources either in the community next to you or right there in your community that you really ought to be availing yourselves to. And this has probably been the most eye-opening experience for me, is when I came and asked those folks if they would cooperate with us and collaborate with us. In most cases, they said, we have been waiting on you to ask us that, or we have wondered why you've never collaborated with us, or we'd love to do that. When can we get started? We have not received any negative feedback from any of the small business providers in our community about how to help each other help the businesses in our community. So the next point, collaborate with other providers. We have the Tennessee Small Business Development Center in our office. That's how much of a collaborative environment we have with them. We have situations where when a new business comes to us, that we recognize clearly that they're not at a point where we think joining the chamber is going to give them a huge lift immediately, but we do recognize that the business needs help on operational issues and on counseling issues. And so we hand walk them over to the Tennessee Small Business Development Center. The great thing that I know about that is I know that they're going to hand walk them back to me and say, these folks are ready to join the chamber now. That's the kind of collaborative environment that we have built with some of these providers in our community. We just received a referral from SCORE the other day where the person was talking about, I feel like my business is operationally in good shape now. I really need to understand how to market my business and how to network with other people to get that done. And SCORE said the best place for you to do that is at the chamber. So again, that collaboration has begun to flourish and give us all opportunities to help each other. The other thing is you want to collaborate with your other members. A lot of you have industry experts in small business issues in your community. One of the things that we always had trouble doing was trying to give one specific segment of our membership more promotion than another. But here's what I learned about 3 years ago, is when business coaches engage our members in a meaningful way, they help their business grow. So I have begun to really encourage and promote and introduce my small business members to business coaches in our community. So it has become a very collaborative referral source for both them and us. If some of these business, and there's about 5 or 6 business coaching groups in our community that we work with. When they come to them for business coaching, one of the first questions those coaches ask them, are you a member of the Knoxville Chamber? And one of the first things I ask a small business when I meet them is, are you interested in receiving more counseling than just the free or low-cost counseling that we can offer you here at the Chamber? Is it something you feel like you would dig into, particularly if they have a business that has a great opportunity to grow? And so by doing that, again, that collaboration with other members has really gained synergy for us in helping our small businesses get the resources they need. I have one business coach in our community that has 18 or 20 clients, and every one of his clients last year had double-digit growth in the last previous fiscal year. And so what a great testimony for me to say to a business owner that comes to my office and sits down and says, I'm really struggling, I've had to lay people off, and I ask them how serious they are about really growing their business and understanding the things that they're fighting fires with every day, if they would be interested in being introduced to a business coach that can really help them. That has made huge credibility strides for us, because I have businesses coming back to us now saying, if you had not introduced me to those folks, I probably wouldn't be in business today. That's a great testimony for you guys. So collaborate with your other members, particularly those ones that can help your small businesses. And then listen to the small business owners. This has been something that we've had to learn kind of the hard way, but I think are getting a lot better at, is we do roundtable discussions now, and we bring small business members in the room and let them talk about the things that are really giving them a hard time. They begin to kind of break barriers down with each other and begin to talk about the need for help, and begin to get some of the business owners that are stubborn and that went into it as a subject matter expert who's just afraid to ask for help or doesn't trust other people with his business. They begin to hear other business owners talk about why getting help is so important, and that breaks down some of those barriers and trust with both the chamber and with some of the resource providers that we're trying to get them to. And then last, I would say, help them discover their weaknesses. You can do this in a lot of different ways. I think roundtable discussions are really great ways to figure out where their weaknesses are. Another way is to do just sort of a small business assessment. And we have a proprietary small business assessment tool here called Chamber Member MD. And it's a 30-minute assessment that's broken down in 4 different areas: financially and operationally sound, market relationship savvy, technology aware, and personally and professionally prepared as a business owner. And we ask questions in all of those areas about what they currently know about their business and maybe help them discover some of their weaknesses. And we just ask simple questions like, do you know what it takes to cash flow your business for 90 days if you had 0 sales? We ask questions like, if you have more than 5 employees, do each of them have a current job description? Do each of them have an employee handbook? We ask questions like, do you have an inventory control method if you have a product? We ask questions like, do you advertise? Why or why not? Do you have a method for measuring the effectiveness of the advertising? We ask them questions like, do you have a CPA under retainer? Do you have an attorney? Do you have a computerized accounting system? It's simple things like that really is, the information's really not for you so much as it is to get them thinking about the things that the normal, successful business would have in place in order to be successful and grow. And so that's the way we help them discover those weaknesses. And then after they do that assessment, we give them a tool called MemberRx. It's their prescription. And so it simply says, if you haven't updated your business plan in the last year, we're having a business plan workshop on Thursday of next week. Here's an invitation. If they say they don't have a CPA, we give them a list of all the CPA members. This is all done online, by the way. It's all computerized and online. If they say they don't have a relationship with an attorney, we give them a list of all the members of the Knoxville Chamber that are attorneys. So it becomes a referral source for our members, but it also helps them understand, again, what reasonably successful businesses do to help their businesses grow. And so it's a win-win. It's a discovery for them of weaknesses, and for us, it's knowledge that helps us drive them directly to resources. Now, I'll tell you, the thing that it potentially helps us with, and has helped us with, is not programming in a vacuum. Because we have this in a database that makes it possible for us to go back and say, okay, give us the name of every business that said they didn't have an updated business plan but has a human resource handbook. So if we want to try to do some sort of a special program for everybody that doesn't have an updated business plan, we have a list, a ready-made list of members that have already said that that's an issue with them. So instead of us sitting in the ivory tower programming in a vacuum, it helps us understand some of the programming we need to do specific to our small business members' needs. So here's one of the simplest ways that I've learned to help small businesses, is just simply sit down with them and ask questions. And here are some of the questions I ask nearly every small business I meet with. So what business issues keep you up at night? And I would put business in there, because if you ask them what issues keep you up at night, it could be everything from children to divorce or whatever else, and that's really not what we're there to talk about. But ask them what business issues keep them up at night. And some of them will tell you it's sales. Some of them will tell you it's a difficult employee. Some of them will tell you it's accounting. Some of them will tell you it's cash flow. But again, that answer becomes a great bond between you and that member of helping you understand how to meaningfully engage with them. I don't know about most of you guys, but when people drop out of the Knoxville Chamber and we ask them why, they can't tell us. They'll tell us, well, I didn't have enough time. Or they'll tell us, well, things are tight. Money's tight. Those are normally not the issues. The issue is probably that we never established a meaningful enough relationship with them that they felt like we were a benefit to them. And so, again, this gets right to the heart of how to be relevant to those members in a way that helps you drive benefit to them. Here's another question. Do development or operational issues consume most of your time? That'll give you a real indication. And you can ask them what background they came from, and usually their past occupation will help you understand whether they're developmentally oriented or operationally oriented. So you can ask them that question, and that'll get you further down the road of understanding that. And then one of the questions that I love best is, who's your trusted resource? Who do you count on when things are down? Who do you count on when you've got a question that can't be answered? Who is the person or the resource that you turn to? And, you know, there's 100 of us on this call, or how many ever, I guess 75 now. We can't answer this to each other specifically, but I can tell you that if you ask this question, the majority of the answer that you'll get, well, I'm not really sure I have one. Or it's their wife or their husband, or it's their friend. And again, I'm not saying that their wife or their husband or their friend is not a smart business person or not a good resource for them, but chances are that is not the person that they really need to be leaning on when they have an unanswered question regarding their business. But not only do you have those answers as a chamber, but you've got all these potential collaborators in your community that have those answers, and you have members who have those answers for these members. And so when you ask them who is your trusted resource and they say, well, I really don't have one, you can very sincerely, if you come this way like we have, you can say to them very sincerely, well, the Knoxville Chamber can become a trusted resource for you in that area. If we can't give you the answer, we can get you to the people that can. And then I simply, from a sales perspective, say, is that something you would find valuable? And they certainly say yes. And at that point, getting them to join the chamber or getting them to engage in a more meaningful way with the chamber is a drop kick. So again, really just having a small 3-question conversation with one of your members or with a potential member can totally change the environment that you're in with that particular person. So again, if all you do when you ask these questions is give them this list that is in front of you right now, you would be doing them a great service. The websites that I have in front of you now, and I would challenge all of you to go to these websites sometime today or tomorrow and look at the great small business tools and information that is available to them on just these 4 websites. The U.S. Chamber of Small Business Nation has a great small business toolkit. We use it frequently. I recommend it frequently. Small Biz Trends is a great site. Videos, blog posts, really informative and educational kinds of articles. It's not uncommon for me to go to Biz Trends, see something on there, copy it, and send it to a specific business that I've had a conversation with over the last couple of weeks regarding a specific issue. I can tell you those kinds of things are big-time retention operations and efforts for you guys. People like that will not drop from the chamber if you take the time to copy and paste an article out of Small Biz Trends and send it to them and say, here's something I thought you want to get a look at. Entrepreneur.com, again, another really great website that has videos, a lot of interactive stuff, blog posts. And then last and certainly not least is Sba.gov. All of these websites have tips and toolkits, videos, great articles specific to everything from marketing to sales to human resources to cloud computing to mobile technology, all of those things that we talked about. Every one of these websites are great resources for that. Here is a screenshot of the U.S. Chamber's Employer Toolkit. You can see up here, I'll see if I can see it here, you can see right here that you can search the toolkits. You can put in sales, you can put in HR, you can put in inventory, you can put in virtually anything, in those search boxes there, and it will give you all kinds of tips and tricks about what to do. This is a great resource for your members. So even if you had to collaborate just in this way on a regular basis, that would be beneficial to your members. Questions so far? Anybody?
Hi, Mark. If you want to take some questions, we have several right now. You want to take a few?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a few, and then we'll finish up.
Okay. The first question is, Chamber MD sounds fabulous. Who developed it, and are you willing to share the info on that RX?
Yeah, We actually developed it here at the Knoxville Chamber. I have a very talented software developer and the person who's responsible for our data and research, and we actually developed that in-house. We have talked with several data providers, database providers in Chamber World, two of which, if I named them, all of you would know their names. One of which is very serious about rolling that out nationally. We have chosen not to do that because that's not the business we're in, and that's not why we developed it. We developed it for our members, and we're using it for our members. But I will tell you that there is great potential that it can be in the marketplace sometime during the next year. And I would not be afraid for any of you to go to KnoxvilleChamber.com, go to our member resources, and to actually take MemberMD if you would like. And when you take it as a guest, you'll just have to put your email address in there. Again, let me say this. To tell you how in a collaborative environment we are, any business in our community can take MemberMD for free. And we don't use it as a recruiting tool. Again, it goes back to what I'd said our philosophy before is we just want to help all the small businesses in our community grow. And so it's available to both our members and to guests by them simply just putting their email address in and saying they're a guest. So you can take that, and when you take it, it will give you the Member RX. You'll get that back in just a few minutes after taking it, and you're welcome to look at it yourself. So it'll have all the resources there so you can see what we do.
So, Mark, the next question, are the assessment questions and the questions on Chamber RX, are those the same questions? So, because someone is asking, can they view it online?
Yes, they can. Those are the same questions. The Chamber Member MD, when you take Chamber Member MD, and again, all of you are welcome to do that, the questions are on there, so you can see the kind of questions that we ask our members and our prospective businesses in our communities.
Okay. All right. Let's see. This question, I don't know what it's referring to. It says, at what point in the process do you ask? During the sales meeting or once they become a member? And it didn't say what she was referring.
That's a great question. I think what they're asking is, at what point do you begin to engage the members of talking to them about their needs? We do it in both places. Our account executives do it briefly in the sales presentation to help them discover why they would join the chamber. You know, we don't just give them the 10 great reasons you should join the Knoxville Chamber. We try as best we can to evaluate from our members why they're joining and at what stage in their business they are and what they think the tools and resources that are going to be most valuable to them are. But we do that in the call to actually sell them a membership. But we also do it in our individual meetings with them at new member orientation. We talk about them availing themselves to things like MemberMD. We talk about any issues or needs they have that our staff is ready and willing and able to schedule some time to talk with them. Or we suggest that they come to some of our Bright Ideas series or some of our business roundtables, that those are great places for them to discover what they need and how the chamber can help them. We do it from an email perspective, and then certainly on our websites and our email digest. You know, we're constantly talking to them about you know, what the chamber can do and the fact that we're just here to help them with the needs they have. So we try to communicate that on an ongoing basis.
Okay. And the last question is, the attendee says the website resources are great. Do you know of any other chambers that have really good small business website resources? You had a list of some other entities, but do you know of any other chambers that have some good website resources? You
know, I think Nashville does a really good job as well from my perspective of driving resources to their members and small businesses as part of that. They've actually built their benefit tiers around small business members now on the lower side, their lower tier memberships. I think Cincinnati, again, you and I were just talking about Cincinnati, Crystal. I think Cincinnati does a really good job. And then, of course, probably the king of small business support is the folks up in Cleveland, Ohio with, their name's escaping me right now.
Steve Millard at Cozy.
Yeah, Steve Millard, you're exactly right. The Cozy.
Yes, Cozy.
The Center of Small Enterprise. Yeah.
Right.
So you can look up COSE on Google, and that's the Center for of Small Enterprise. I would say probably the best in the nation is probably Cleveland, Ohio's COSE.
Yes.
With Steve Millard and his folks.
Yep. Okay, that was the last question.
All right. So let me end with this. You know, it's really not what you're doing about as a chamber. I mean, we talk about this a lot in staff meetings. I mean, we could, you know, in 2011 we were, I guess, lucky enough in some ways to win Chamber of the Year. In some ways, I'm sure it's because of our hard work, but we were lucky enough to get Chamber of the Year in 2011. So there are a lot of things that we could hold up and say we're doing this right or we're doing that right. But at the end of the day, we talk about this as a staff quite a bit. It's really not what we do as a chamber that we think's what needs to happen. It's really what small businesses need us to do for them. And the only way that we're able to do that is to ask them and to engage with them in a meaningful way and to help them understand that we're here as a resource for them. And again, some of you are probably reeling and saying, well, there's no way in the world I can totally innovate my service delivery to just focus on small businesses. You don't have to do that. We didn't. What we started doing is sending the message into the community in a meaningful way that we cared about them, that we had resources and tools, and that it wasn't just us, that it was other providers in our community, but we were the no wrong door for them to knock on. That's another term that we use around here, the no wrong door philosophy. If they knock on our door, we will get them where they need to be. Even if they don't join the chamber, even if they decide that they go to SCORE, they go to SBA, that's great. We're confident enough in what we do is that we will see them again, and when we see them, they're going to be in a better position to represent their small business in the community through the chamber. So we just have a no wrong door philosophy. We don't care if they get to SCORE or SBA or us. We're going to get them wherever they need to go to get the resources and tools they need. And by having that kind of an attitude, it has paid great dividends back to us in them coming back and saying, I'm glad I didn't join the chamber then, or I'm ready to join the chamber now, or I appreciate you just getting me where I needed to go and not making me feel like I had to join the chamber in order to receive benefit. And the last thing I'd say to you is, Margaret Thatcher said, man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore. So I would just say to you guys, if you're not doing this, just try as best you can to lose sight of the shore a little bit, get a little bit of courage and gain a little self-image and just say, you know what, we're going to go for this. We're going to try to help our small business members, and we're going to try to see if there's not some way that we can engage with them meaningfully. Any other questions?
I have one last question, and then we can wrap it up. What do you say to a current small business member who wants to drop membership, cost economy, et cetera, to save them?
You know, here's kind of our philosophy, and you're hearing this from the Senior Vice President of Membership in a chamber the size of Knoxville. You know, I don't want anybody to be a member of my chamber that doesn't want to be. I don't want anybody to feel like the money they spend in our chamber is not a good value for them. And so the simple question I would ask them is, do they really feel like, from a value proposition, that spending the $250, $350, $450 that they have to spend with your chamber is not a great value to you? I want that question answered. And if they say no, then I would ask them, would they please do me the favor of sitting down and telling me what that value proposition would have been for them. Could you please give me a 3 free bullet point message and email that tells me what would have been a valuable resource or tool to you inside of our chamber that would have justified you maintaining your membership? That information is more valuable to you than $350 they would pay you, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I would say to them, I understand, you know, everybody has to make value decisions based on the amount of money they have. And I would say I think we're the best business resource in our community, but I would want to know what value proposition that they felt like we weren't delivering to them that would keep them from spending that kind of small amount of money on a great resource like we are. And again, I think the answer to that would be very valuable.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark, to all of our listeners. We will have the PowerPoint and the recorded presentation available on our website within 24 hours. If you have any questions, Mark, do you want to give your email directly, or?
I would be glad to. My email address is mfield@knoxvillechamber.com. mfield@knoxvillechamber.com.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mark. We hope to work with you again really soon.
All right, thank you so much, Crystal, and good luck, everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's webinar. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.